was doing a little research because there's been talk that Rodney Garner could be interviewed at Auburn. And I was seeing what Rodney Garner makes, which is in the $900,000 realm. If you look at the top 25 highest paid assistant coaches, they are all coordinators, and they're all making over $1 million. So is Joey Halzle at 1.2. We're at about the time of year where the raises will come out if they get any. Jimmy, you have to give out raises just to kind of keep up with the Joneses. But to me, an 8-4 regular season was about as bad as that Tennessee football team could have done record-wise. What are your thoughts on how you would divvy out raises, if at all, for this upcoming season when everybody gets new contracts and extensions and all that good stuff?
If Auburn comes at Rodney Garner and they offer him a significant amount of money, I'm going to try to do what I can to match it as long as it's reasonable. If Auburn comes at Garner and offers him $2 million, see you later. If they come at him and offer him $1.2 million, which is what you said Halzle's making, I would match that. I think that Rodney Garner is every bit, if not more valuable than Halzle, because I think Josh Heupel's running this offense. Halzle is the quarterback's coach. That's the way I see it. Heupel's the play caller. There's one other person on that staff that I think has done a really good job, and it may surprise you, but I think under the circumstances has done a really good job, and that's Glenn Ellerbe. What has he got to work with? I mean, I look at it, and he didn't have Cooper Mays the first, 4 games of the season. I don't think they're extremely talented at these other positions. I think they're okay. They had some injuries. They got banged up. Spraggins late in the year had the torn MCL. So I think he's been the second best assistant coach under Heupel. I would go Garner and then Ellerbe, and then beyond that, I wouldn't give anybody else a raise.
I think that's fiscally responsible. Something tells me they'll all get one. That's how it usually works. I agree with you. I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen, Caleb.
So, Jimmy, what about this bold move? Now, he's under contract, and I don't know when his contract ends, but do you think Tennessee would ever do something as bold, or Josh Heupel would ever do something as bold as to say, Joey Halzle, your contract's up. We're going to keep you, but you're just not worth what we were paying you before. So I think we're going to dock your salary about $400,000, $500,000 so we can make sure to pay Rodney Garner. Do you think somebody would ever do an unprecedented move like that?
I don't hate that. But Jimmy's right. He wouldn't, but I don't hate it. If you had to reallocate funds like those of us that are in the real world, Jimmy, and like you've got to allocate funds to build the deck and you have to take away from somewhere else, I wouldn't have any problem taking away some cash from Joey Halzle and giving it to Rodney Garner. Or another coach that I think is underrated given the circumstances is Tim Banks.
Yeah, I think Banks did a good job. If you look at the numbers defensively and what they're able to do, they ranked in the top 3 or 4 in most important categories like scoring defense, total defense, rushing defense. Now, they were terrible in pass defense, but in those other 3 categories, they were in the top 4 or 5 in the SEC. And look, I know that this offense does not lend itself to protecting the defense all the time, but a lot of times it was the defense's fault. I mean, it wasn't the offense's fault that Missouri had a 20-play drive and converted 6 third downs. Okay, the defense brought a lot of that on itself. But the final numbers that Tennessee had are pretty darn good. Now, I think it's interesting. So if you play the game of this is our pool of money and we have to redistribute it, and you dock Halzle $400,000, then you tell Halzle, go get an NIL deal. Go get your own. Go supplement your salary with speaking engagements, autographs, signing stuff. So there you go. Open it up for coaches.
We're talking to the guy who oftentimes schedules people for the quarterback club. Yes. So maybe you could help them meet in the middle.
Oh yeah, we'd be glad to. You can come over. In fact, you can come over. You have to do a weekly 10-minute segment with the quarterback club, and then we'll help supplement your pay.
What kind of cash are we talking?
Not 400,000.
Well, this is the problem. Let's be honest. The minute you cut Joey Halzle's pay and that becomes public knowledge, you just totally wrecked his marketability as a coach.
It's not going to happen. Well, but you know what? Harbaugh took a cut in pay before he got fired.
That is true.
And then after the cut in pay, they did some really good scouting, ingenious scouting to help them. Would they lose 3 or 4 games his last 3 years there?
Yes,
With
that
the
is
help
true.
of with the help of a stallion recruiter. Yeah.
Stallion recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jimmy. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go.
No, it's okay. I was going to get sidetracked and bring up the parallels between Sherrone Moore and Philip Fulmer because I don't know if you noticed that Michigan didn't take off until Sherrone Moore was promoted to offensive coordinator, and now he's head coach. The same way Tennessee didn't take off under Johnny Majors until Phil Fulmer was promoted to offensive coordinator in '89.
Not a reach at all, Caleb. Not a
former offensive line coaches too at the time.
Well,
Yeah.
let's see how he does. Jimmy, how important is it to keep some consistency with this staff? That being said, I'm not calling for anybody's job, but if there is going to be a change, can they upgrade from Willie Martinez in the defensive backfield?
I think so. And look, I like Martinez. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a pretty good recruiter, but the secondary's not played well, and they've got to be better. In my opinion, the thing that would hold this team back for this upcoming season, I know you guys think they'll win 10 or 11. I'm not in that camp because I don't think their secondary is good enough, and I think they're going to get torched by some team. So they need an upgrade with the production in the secondary, and I think they could probably find a better secondary coach than Martinez.
Yep, I tend to think so.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to rate 1, 2, 3 in order, the 3 assistant coaches that Tennessee would least like to lose,
I would say Garner. Probably that they would least like to lose. Banks and Ellerby. That would be my 3.
That's what I would say as well. Caleb?
I hate agreeing with you guys on everything, but y'all are right. The only one I would add in, and who I think is very underrated.
We've been doing this a while. That Jimmy guy's like 6 decades there.
Yeah. So the only reason the only one I would throw in there that I think we're kind of underrating is two I want to throw in that are kind of underrated. Mike Eckler he coaches a lot more. He does a lot of the outside linebacker coaching, which involves the edge rusher. So for a guy like James Pierce or Byron Young, he deserves as much credit as Rodney Garner does for that. And then also Kelsey Pope I know the last year was a bit of a drop off at receiver because of the injuries, but before that, he was turning into a really good developer of receivers. I mean, he's the guy who turned Cedric Tillman into a 1,000-yard receiver. He worked when he was an all-field analyst. Heupel had him and Tillman work together specifically, and then he got promoted to receivers coach, and he turned Jalen Hyatt into a Biletnikoff winner. So I think Kelsey Pope is a rising young star. Probably outside of Ellerby, he's the best skills coach on the offensive side of the ball.
So we've only had about half the people hit that like button. So do that now. If you haven't subscribed yet, do that. We certainly appreciate it. And Jimmy, I want to ask you this poll question before we talk a little bit of hoops. It's National Signing Day, believe it or not. Did you even know that?
Yeah.
That's bizarre. Jimmy and I used to work. I mean, him and John used to work, a combined almost 40 hours on a Wednesday. So I'm going to give you this question. It's our poll question. It's on the YouTube page. National Signing Day and Vols don't have a top 10 class. How does that sit with you? Still building, all good. I can live with that. Josh Heupel has to recruit better.
Oh, I can live with where they are in recruiting. And a lot of that, what you want to do in recruiting is recruit good players at position of need. And one of the things I hate to say you have to do this. It used to be you had to get a quarterback in every class, right? A really good one. Well, that's not as important as it used to be because you're going to probably lose one of the quarterbacks on your roster, and then you just go in the portal and find somebody else. I mean, look, the top 3 quarterbacks that are listed in the draft this year were all guys that transferred, right? That's not true. Drake May did not transfer. I take that back. Bo Nix did. So if you took the top 5 quarterbacks, 4 were transfer quarterbacks in the NFL draft. So, but I think it's a solid class. You got to get what they've got to do is either a better job of recruiting good offensive linemen. I think that's been part of an issue. They haven't had a lot of them that have developed into really good players. So they've got to do a better job in that regard. But I think they did a good job of filling needs with very good players.